In 1965, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was enacted by the Johnson's administration, aimed to improve education like it does today for lower-income families by providing extra funds for poor schools and districts. Since then, it's been reauthorized 7 times, 2002's being the No Child Left Behind Act. Each reauthorization has changed it a little bit, but its goal still remains today, to help lower-income students gain a good education. Under the No Child Left Behind Act, students receive standardized tests statewide and annually, underneath all the same conditions. The funding that comes from these tests often goes to those with the highest average, making it a somewhat unfair war ground, and schools that repeatedly fail these tests then face heavy reforms in the future by the government to restructure them for better scores. Positives. Since 2002, student test scores have been getting better, especially among minority students. Also, the percentage of highly qualified teachers has risen to above 90% across the nation. Regular testing has allowed teachers to gauge your students' needs and abilities so that they can help students reach grade proficiency, and the number of schools that have met the minimum AYP, which is about the average scores of the students that pass their federal programs, has actually drastically increased, making the test a somewhat success. Challenges. For one thing, the government can't always fully fund such large-scale tests, and oftentimes make local and state governments have to cover the bill. Another thing is that achievement is only measured through multiple-choice questions, limiting some students. Also, teachers focus more on getting students to pass a test within the year than the rest of their curriculum oftentimes. And all students, except for severe disability students, are held to the same standard, regardless of their demographic, ability level, and their native language. Schools oftentimes put less focus on other areas than math and reading, hurting science and art classes especially. And in the past few years, more and more schools are being identified as needs improvement, leaving them to hang in the balance. Changes. The biggest problem is that the goals right now are unrealistic, and in the long run, eventually most schools will be labeled as failures. High student standards are only stalling reforms now, but getting rid of them would be bad. Holding teachers and schools accountable is only a good thing. It's not only necessary, but absolutely essential for success. So here's what we can do to fix the No Child Left Behind Act. 1. We need to set attainable goals, and when the schools reach them, then we can raise the bar bit by bit. 2. We need better tests. We need tests that can't be taught, but can actually measure a student's ability and broaden testing focus, so that other programs can be helped as well. 3. We need accountability for students as well as teachers. Right now, teachers need the highest scores, and students need an incentive to do good on these tests. If their performance increases on the tests, that means also that their performance is increasing in school, and they're learning more, which is essential and what the program's all about. Lastly, these tests need to be fair. This is the main focus of these programs, to help these schools that aren't getting the help. We need teachers to not just have the standards to meet, but we need to give them the resources so that they can be successful if they're going to be held accountable for what the students have to give. Everyone must get an adequate education, no matter where they live or what their background is. So let's be fair about this. If these 4 goals were put into the No Child Left Behind Act, then standardized tests would be more effective, and the reforms inside education would be far more successful. Who'd be for it? Well, teachers, administrators, some parents, and of course students, are always against testing. But at least if these reforms came about, then I think students would be more willing to do it, especially if these tests had a little bit more meaning to them. Taxpayers, of course, aren't going to be for this, and legislators aren't. But inside the long run, we're going to need to make these changes, because what we have right now isn't doing anything.